Hi, my name is Kimberly Weber, and I'm going to be talking about presidential rhetoric on today. Presidential rhetoric is commonly found in presidential messages such as inaugural addresses, war messages, and natural eulogies, and it's used to inspire, persuade, and unite Congress and the citizens of the United States. Rhetoric, as defined by the Oxford English Dictionary, is the art of effective or persuasive speaking or writing, or language designed to have a persuasive or impressive effect on its audience. Through rhetorical action, presidents are allowed to create the presidency, as explained by Campbell and Jamison in our textbook. The words are often used to evoke action, patriotism, and/or compassion. The presidency is simply a role that implies leadership. In order to have any type of leadership, the leader must have followers. He must have individuals who believe in him, and there must be a common goal or task at hand. That leader must possess empathy and garner loyalty from his followers. The president uses his words delivered in such a way to evoke these feelings from citizens. The book says that skillful presidents not only adapt to their audiences, but also engage in transforming those who hear them into the audiences they desire. Before taking this class, I didn't understand the importance of rhetoric as used within presidential speeches. I didn't understand much about political communication, but now I have a better understanding in how presidents use the narrative that they do to relay a message and to invoke different emotions from the public. So I'm going to talk about the inaugural addresses. Some people think that a president's inaugural address is repetitive and it's rehearsed. Some people feel like they deliver the inaugural address out of tradition and that it's pretty much the same thing over and over again. It's nothing new. They believe that the inaugural address is more for a show than actual expression. However, Campbell and Jamison argue that the reason for some people's belief is that inaugural addresses are misunderstood. They argue that the inaugural address is a time for reflection and I quote, a singular moment at which the president has a platform from which to demonstrate a capacity for leadership, an appreciation of the nation's values, a sensitivity to key issues facing the nation, and an ability to mobilize and unify the citizenry in support of a new administration. This is the one moment where the president has the entire nation's attention, not for reporting negativity or talking about war, talking about bad things that happen, but an effort to unite the nation as one and reflect upon our values. He reaffirms what he sets out to accomplish throughout his term in office. He instills courage and hope in the citizens of the nation. At this moment, we are one as he reflects on the events of the past while setting focus on the future. At this moment, he adorns the nation with the respect of the office and his role and its citizens. It's basically his rite of passage. Okay? And then one of the other things that I learned that I kind of focused on was presidential war rhetoric. Presidential war rhetoric through U.S. history manifests several pivotal characteristics. And I'm going to quote these. Number one, every element in it proclaims that the momentous decision to resort to force is deliberate, the product of thoughtful consideration. Number two, forceful intervention is justified through a chronicle or narrative form from which argumentative claims are drawn. Number three, the audience is exhorted to the unanimity of purpose and total commitment. Number four, the rhetoric not only justifies the use of force, but also seeks to legitimize presidential assumption of the extraordinary powers of the commander-in-chief, and as a function of these other characteristics. Number five, strategic misrepresentations play an unusual significant role in its appeals. As the book puts it, the argument claims that the threat imperils the nation and indeed civilization itself, that the threat emanates from the act of an identifiable enemy, and that despite a patient search for alternatives, the threat necessitates a forceful, immediate response. It is the president's job to characterize the circumstances impelling action. Ultimately, the president should have the citizens deem his actions as being necessary to protect and defend the nation by waging war against its enemies. In a sense, the president instills fear in his citizens through the use of words. He may relay past events that have happened to evoke emotion, or even predict what may happen if the issues are not handled appropriately. One of the speeches that I'm going to focus on is Woodrow Wilson's speech. I actually wrote my paper on this speech, and this was when he asked Congress to declare war against Germany in 1917. He wants to persuade Congress how important this war is, the commitment to the cause. He paints the picture of Germany's recklessness and the overall burden placed on America. He links the relationship between the wars being fought as a nation to protect its own, but also an obligation to his allies. He wants Congress to believe that its consideration lies with our country's well-being as first and foremost, but also how it affects us as a whole. So, and he basically talks about how he went to Germany and he made a plan with Germany that they wouldn't attack innocent citizens or U.S. ships or any innocent people in the sea. Basically, they wouldn't attack them, or B, they would give them a warning and enough time to escape and save them lives before they sank that ship. Well, a specific ship was sunk, Lusitania. It had American cargo on there. Basically, it had American individuals on that ship. That ship was sunk. The president addressed Congress. At this point, he wanted to wage war. Now, it's also been rumored that that ship carried more than just American people, but that's a different subject for a different day, right? So basically, he basically justified the need for action against Germany, but also proved to Congress that his decision was not of haste, but that he considered this situation carefully. He made attempts to resolve the country's differences without the use of force. He solidifies his role as commander in chief, capable of leading the nation into war. And basically, he says to Congress that it's not basically my decision to wage this war. I've carefully looked at all the alternatives and all the objectives, but I think that I wanted to present this information to you, and you allowed me to make this decision. This is not something that I can do on my own. So ultimately, he captured the ears of the American Congress and also the American people, and obviously we went to war. That is the beginning of World War One. Well, not the beginning. So next we're going to talk about the national eulogy. According to the authors, the national eulogy links the present to the future with a central line of argument that those who died exemplify the best of a nation that will survive this moment because of its ideals cannot be undermined by events such as those that took their lives. And basically, the president immortalizes these individuals in our hearts and in our minds so that we may not forget them, but we will remember them and also remember the sacrifices that they made for us in our country. He creates an image of their memory to remind us of these, and he wants to unify and encourage the citizens of our nation. These eulogies, if performed correctly, have the ability to gain admiration and political capital for president. This capital that we're talking about is rhetoric, and it builds a foundation to utilize in other related events. Example I'm going to use is going to be President Clinton with the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995. Before this incident came about, the President Clinton, he was failing. The people were losing confidence in him as a president. Ironically, at a press conference the day before the bombing, he called himself an activist and a relevant president. And then his response in handling the bombing incidents was admired by the nation. He later used that incident for political capital. He used to attack Republican-led Congress for the mistreatment of government workers due to his State of the Union address the following January. He brought out survivor Richard Dean. He used Dean and his patriotism as an example to criticize Congress for past government shutdowns. He drew upon the sympathy of others and challenged Congress to never shut down the federal government again. So basically, he used that respect that he got from the Oklahoma City bombing and he used it and turned around and used it for something totally different. Okay, so that's going to be, we talked about national eulogies, we talked about the inaugural addresses, and then we talked about President war rhetoric. So basically, those were the three major topics that I believe that I learned the most about in this class. I take the different speeches and I pay attention to the words that the president using and the narrative that he used and how he reflects upon different events, like George Washington reflecting upon, you know, the how we become a nation, the fight, the battle that we had, and how that we will be respected as a nation, as one. The presidents use sympathy, from people who've died. They sacrificed their lives for our country, and in the case of 9/11. So basically, I learned that how to use your words to be able to persuade individuals and bring them into action. And I think that this will not only help me understand politics more, but it also helped me in my everyday life and in my career. When I may need to speak to a group of people and the words that I may use to be able to evoke emotion and call action from them. I did enjoy your class. I won't say that it was easy because sometimes it was quite difficult, but I do appreciate the opportunity. And again, my name is Kimberly Weber, and thank you.